Oh yeah, pipe smokers. Happy Tuesday. It's the 25th of June. And I love Mark Hill's haircut. Got his eyebrows done. Mark Hill, Welsh Piper 62. You look great. I love it. So anyways, yeah, this is our Tuesday smoke together. So grab your favorite pipe, grab your favorite blend, grab your favorite beverage, and let's set something on fire together. Let's get it done right away because I kind of ripped you guys off the last few videos. So we have this EA Carry bowl number 323 pipe. It's made out of olive wood. And that's the only thing I smoke Ahab's Comfort out of. The only place you can get Ahab's Comfort is from Watch City Pipe and Cigar. And I love it. I only smoke that out of this bowl. Yeah. Or I only smoke this bowl only smokes Ahab's Comfort. I've smoked it in other bowls, but let's set something on fire. Yeah. Mm. Mm-mm. Oh, that's so good. Man, oh man. Yep. I love this Ahab's Comfort, man. It is Latakia rich. And I love that. Oh, yeah. By the way, cheers. We have a Busch beer here. This pipe is getting broken in very nicely. So every now and then I get a question or a comment where I think to myself, okay, I could answer it in like 2,000 words. Or I could just make it part of my a video, you know. So that's what I want to talk about. I got on our Monday night smoke together, I got a response from Panel Planet. Yeah, Panel Planet. And he says, when did your love of rock and roll start? Love to hear how you started playing music and what influenced you to pick up the guitar and shred it. Well, I don't know how well I shred it, but I sure have fun trying. That's a good question. Well, when I was about 11 years old in 1975, my mother bought me a brand new Yamaha acoustic guitar. And it was a beginner's model, but any Yamaha guitar is going to play good if it's set up right, and this one did. Unfortunately, I traded it in with some other guitars 45 years ago. So, along with the guitar, my mother says, I'm going to give you some lessons we're going to pay for those for you. And so at the time, I think they only charged like $5 for a half-hour lesson, which now it's like 40, 50 bucks. So, obviously I didn't have a car or a driver's license, so my mother would take me down, and this woman would teach me. She was trying to start out with the basics of music, reading music, and playing the guitar. But let's fast forward a little before that. My love for music really started when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I used to have a little record player, the kind that folded up into like a suitcase. You old guys like me, you'd remember that. And yeah, it had a little extension cord that came out the back, and you'd plug it in, you'd open it up, and then you'd put your little 45 on there. It had the little squiggly attachment, that would go inside the 45 record, and then you could play it, or you could play the bigger albums. And so I remember I had this 145. I don't even know where I got it from at 5 years old. And it was a Glen Campbell 45. And it was Rhinestone Cowboy. And I played that over and over and over and over and over till I finally almost wore that 45 out. And, for you younger people, the 45 was a record about that big. It had side A, side B. There were 2 songs on it. Versus a full album, which we don't need to get into that. So I played this, and so as years went on, my mom and dad realized that I really, really like music. So they get me the guitar, brand new. It was beautiful. Go to my first lesson, and the lady's like, "Okay, we're gonna learn notes." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "Okay, now this is the A note and the B note," and she's going through all the stuff. She's got me playing beep, 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 beep. Mary Had a Little Lamb. She's like, "All right, your lesson's over. Now go practice that till next week." And I come back and did that again, and then all of a sudden there's another nursery rhyme that she comes up with, and she's like, "I want you to read the notes on the paper." And I'm thinking to myself, man, all I really want to do is play songs. I don't want to go beep, 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 beep. And yeah, she was teaching me the foundations of notes and music and so forth. And then I was just like, I've had enough of this. So, after the lesson, I was looking around. I'm 11, 12 years old, looking around in the music store, and I see this chord book of like popular folk songs or whatever. And I grabbed it, and I was like, open it up, and I was like, oh, it's got full songs in here, and it shows where the finger placement is. So I don't need this lady. I don't have to play Mary Had a Little Lamb or Happy Birthday, or any of that shit, And I was just like, "Ma, can I get this?" It was like $2.50. Yeah, okay. So, I took it home. I was like, "I don't want to go back for any more lessons, Mom." She's like, "Well, why not?" And I says, "No, I just want to study out of this book." So, there was like Puff the Magic Dragon, stuff like that. There was House of the Rising Sun. House of the Rising Sun actually was the first song that I learned how to play. Man, I haven't thought about that in a long time. And, it goes, there is a house in New Orleans. And so I was like, okay, all right, yeah, I know this song. Let's go, try to get my fingers to, all right, I think this finger's supposed to go there, because it only showed you a pattern like this, all right? It showed, the guitar strings. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it had like little, okay, this is for an A chord or whatever, or a D minor. Yeah, that's where you're supposed to, put your fingers. Right there. Yeah, right there. And I'm like, all right, okay, I don't know what finger to put where, so we'll just put whatever finger that feels natural to go there. So that's what we did. And all of a sudden, I'm playing House of the Rising Sun and singing it. And I practiced and practiced and practiced. And my mom hears me and she's like, wow. So, then I started digging through her old albums. And, when all the kids that were my age were listening to heavy metal in the, late 70s and early 80s, in school, they were listening to that. I thought it was garbage. I liked stuff like 1950s music, Elvis Presley, stuff like that, and Chuck Berry. So the music I was listening to that I loved was 20 to 30 years older than the new music that my schoolmates were listening to, and so it's like, no, I like this, man. Then I discovered the Beatles, which I remember being a little kid. My mom had the Meet the Beatles album. It was the first album released here in the United States. And I remember she'd be holding me up on her shoulder. The record player was behind the couch or whatever. And I remember it was by Capitol Records, and it had like a rainbow that went around it. And so when you turn the record on, I was fascinated by it. I was probably a couple years old. So I fell in love with the Beatles. Stuff like from the British invasion, but first I liked like Chuck Berry, Chubby Checker, Elvis Presley, all those classics that the Beatles and the Stones and the English invasion groups listened to and were inspired by. I was inspired by those first, then I found them. And so I started just plunking away. And so, so I was teaching myself, I basically taught myself. Then I ran into a buddy of mine when we were about 14. He loved the Beatles too. And every week I would go down. This was shortly before John Lennon was assassinated, so it was late 70s. He was shot and killed December 8th of 1980. Well, before that, I'd take my paper route money. I'd ride my 10-speed 10, 12 miles to a record store in Brockport. I'd pick up 2, 3 Beatles albums. They were only like $2.99 or $3.99 at that time. Well, couldn't wait to get home and open that cellophane. I never took the cellophane off. I'd open the cellophane, I'd leave it on the album, take it out, and then put it on. It was like, ah, this is awesome. So I met a like-minded mate of mine in school, and he loved the Beatles too, and we decided to put together a Beatles band, and that's what we did. You know, so we got a drummer. He loved the Beatles. We got a bass player that loved the Beatles. I love the Beatles. My buddy Gary, he loved the Beatles. We still all do, and so we were practicing all this music. I mean, back then our parents had to drive us around. We didn't have cars or licenses. And by then, I'd gotten my first electric guitar, which was a PVT-15 or something like that. I can't remember. It was a PV guitar. It was a cool little guitar. And so yeah, I had a little amplifier. And we really didn't have any microphones, so we're trying to sing over our own music. Didn't have a PA system or any of that. So so we were playing real loud one day in the village of Spencerport, and the local police show up and told us we had to turn it off. We're like, how cool is that? That's what they did on top of Abbey Road Studios. You know, they shut the Beatles down. They shut us down. And then passed a noise ordinance back around 1981. So we all stayed in touch, and I just kept practicing and playing. I wouldn't consider myself a great guitar player, you know. I wouldn't consider myself a great singer, but, you know, the thing that, and then, you know, I got into some harmonica. I had like 4 different types of harmonicas, all different keys. You know, and I remember one night, my second wife, I was practicing, and I had a PA system in the living room and a guitar and an amplifier and everything, and I was practicing like 3 hours a night. And she was like, "Why do you do that?" Now here's a lady that used to travel all over the world with a church group, all over the world to perform. Phenomenal singer. They had a church group, and like I said, they traveled all over the world. And she's saying, "Well, why are you doing this?" I says, "Because I'm a musician." She's like, "You're not a musician." He says, "Well," he says, "I've been writing songs." I had a songwriting partner, Dan Foley. We wrote several songs together. I still play them. I says, "I've written my own music and I play guitar." She's like, no, you're not a musician. You're just somebody who likes music." And I was like, phew. So went over to one of the local bars that I happen to know the family that owned it. And I said, "Hey, you know, mind if I set up here, blah, blah, blah." I says, "I'll just play for whoever wants to buy me a beer." So I put my guitar case open, and, you know, people were throwing ones in, $5 in, whatever, buy me beers, and come back and mudloading the car. And my wife is like, "Where the heck have you been?" I said, "Well, you said I wasn't a musician." I said, "I'm actually a professional musician." She says, no, wait, what are you talking about, Paul? I said, I made $100 tonight and I drank a 12-pack of beer that I didn't have to pay for. Here you go. Here's $100. And I asked her years later, why did you ever say that? And she says, well, I was jealous. She says, I wanted to hurt you. And it did. After that, I put down my guitar. I didn't sing, didn't play anything for 7 years. I didn't touch it. That hurt me so bad. To have someone that you love and that you trust say that to you hurts a lot. And so, so I've done, karaoke stuff, and I love to perform in front of people. Remember, many times I'll be out singing karaoke or something. I remember I was watching this one video back, and I nailed this song. It's called Unchained Melody, which is not an easy song to do. And I got to the high part, and I just nailed it. And I hear some guy, I didn't hear it when I was doing it, when I was doing the performance. But I packed the dance floor. And I heard this guy in the video go, whoa, that dude can sing. And I was like, yeah. And when you get that energy from that crowd, and I've had standing ovations and stuff, it doesn't make me anything special. But when you get that back from a crowd, when you've poured out everything that you can, and you really have to be sober to do that. 2 a.m. Pipe on the Patio made a comment one time. He's like, Paul, he says, I got to tell you, he says, you sing so much better when you're sober, because I used to do Friday night blues and I'd get hammered and half hammered, not stumbling around, but, and it just wasn't as good. You're slurring your words and stuff, so that, stuck with me. He's right, 2 a.m. Pipe on the Patio, yeah. Johnny Onion. So that's where my musical stuff came. So to shred a guitar, I don't know. I put a little link in there for you for an outdoor jam I did about 9 months ago. Anyway, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah. I'm Paul the Pipe Guy, live from the outskirts of Rochester, New York, in the United States of America. Oh, I don't have that shirt on. Anyways, happy pipe smoking, over and out.